This is homework 3, problem 9. You are to find the outputs given a certain input for this graph of what happens to be a parabola. And you're going to use this graph for both problems 9 and problems 10. So this graph is the result of making ordered pairs by putting values into a function, calculating an output from an input value. In the parentheses, we have a 1 for letter A, and the way we read this out loud is f of 1 equals what? The input is 1, the output is what we're trying to find. If we go to the graph, we can go to the value 1 for x. That's our input. The x values are always going to be your inputs for these f of x functions. So I go over to the right 1 unit along the x-axis, and I'm going to travel up along the grid mark for 1 until I bump into the curve. And I bump into the curve right here, and I go across and ask myself, what's the y value there, the value along the y-axis? And it happens to be 3. So when I input 1, I get an output of 3 in this function. So the answer to letter A is 3. Let's take a look at an input of -1 into this function. So now this time my pencil's on 0, 0, and I travel to the left 1 along the x-axis. So from 0, 0, travel to -1 for my input. Now if I follow my grid mark to the function, I don't go up this time because the curve isn't up here anywhere, it's down here. Travel along that grid mark until I run into the function, and I run into it right here at what y value? And if I cross over to the y-axis, I can see that that is -5. Now the negative signs on this graph didn't come out too well, but you know that below the x-axis, the values for y are negative, and likewise over here, these are all negative values to the left of 0 on the x-axis. So when I input -1 and travel to my function, the output is -5. This is the point -1, -5. So the answer, input -1, output -5. It's just asking you what coordinate pair is located at -1 along this function. Let's do the final one, f of 3, and it's a +3. So again, I put my pencil at 0, 0, and I travel 1, 2, 3 to the right because it's +3. And then I follow the grid mark at 3 up to the function until I bump into the curve. And I can see that for an input of +3 for x along my x-axis, travel over to my y-axis, I can see that that also is +3. So input 3, output is also 3 for that answer. Alright? So now you're going to do the same thing with the same graph. You're going to find the input for 2, 0, and -1. Remember, these are values along the x-axis, and then you're going to travel to the curve from whatever grid mark that is at and find the coordinating y value.